Okay, Parashat Shavua, we all know it's Parashat Korah. Very interesting parasha. I want to take a little bit of time to go through who Korah was, his beginning, how he started, and maybe a little, I always like to delve into a little bit of depth, and we'll go maybe through the journey of Korah's reincarnations, who he was before he was Korah, and you'll see that it's very interesting that the Torah hints us many times. It hints us things that we might read over and over again and take very subtly, and we don't understand what the Torah is telling us. So the parasha starts as follows: Vaikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kehat ben Levi v'Datan v'Abiram ben Eliyav v'on ben Peled ben Reuven, all the people that were involved in the machloket of Korach, ve'akumu lifnei Moshe. And we know that what made Korach, that we know Korach was a great person. The Midrash says, who was Korach? Amar Rabbi Levi, 12 gedolim hayu ba'olam. There were 12 great people in the world. 22 great people in the world. Echad b'Yisrael ve'echad b'umot ha'olam. Korach b'Yisrael. And Korach was one of the greatest people considered to be in the world. And they all fell to their wives because they listened to their wives in this machloket, in this rivalry with Moshe Rabbeinu. And Korach was one of the people that listened to his wife, and unfortunately, we know what the ending was. But a very interesting says the Midrash, Bo re kama kasha machloket. And that's the idea that I want to focus on tonight. We see how important it is for a person to try to avoid any kind of friction with another human being, any kind of argument. Says the Midrash, Shekola ozer b'machloket, whoever even helps, forget if you're the one that made the machloket, forget if you're the one that made the argument. The Midrash says, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes you away from the world. A fire came out from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and ate the 250 people. How great is this machloket? You see what happened in Korach and the 250 people. Usually when a person sins, he's about 20 years old. And then if a person's 20 years old, there comes a judgment from him, from Shemaim. But over here in the machloket of Korach and the argument of Korach, afilu tinokot ben yomon yisrafu, even little children that were younger, they also got involved. They also got burned. And when the land opened its mouth, as Moshe Rabbeinu said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please show this, make a miracle here that they'll know that this machloket was different. Over here, when the land opened up its mouth, it also took the little children that were under 20. So we see the grievance, and we see how dangerous it is to have a machloket. So what made Korach even start up with Moshe? Korach was a great person, we know that. He was very wealthy. He was the head of a tribe. He pretty much had everything a person can want in life. What made him come to start a machloket with Moshe? So the Midrash says something very interesting, that Korach saw that Shmuel and Navi was going to come out of him. And because he saw that Shmuel and Navi was going to come out of him, and we know that the Torah says that Shmuel and Navi was Shakul Keneged Moshe v'Aaron, he was in the same parameters as Moshe v'Aaron together. So said Korach, how can it be that I'm going to have such a great grandchild that's going to be so great like Shmuel, and look at my position, I should be one of the kings, I should be one of the heads of Am Yisrael. So Rashi says over there that Mekachra, he took his Da'at, his Ruach HaKodesh, it took him in a wrong direction. But the Torah is really hinting to us something very interesting here. And we'll see how this all plays out, and we'll see how the interactions between Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach were all really to fix everything happened, because really Moshe and Korach already met before. And this interaction between Moshe and Korach was just to fix their first interaction from the beginning. And we know that the Pirkei Avot says that akina v'atava v'akavod motzi'im et ha'adam me'al. Now, when a person has jealousy, when a person has lust, says the Pirkei Avot, that takes you out of the world. What does that mean, that takes you out of the world? That person's still alive. That person's still functioning. He's still eating. It means that when a person is so self-absorbed with somebody else, so self-absorbed with something like kavod, something like respect, something like jealousy, when you're so jealous of the other person and your whole focus on the other person is, you forget to enjoy what you have, you forget to enjoy what your position is, that means it takes you out of the world because you're not even enjoying, you're so self-absorbed, you're so into what's going on into your mind that it removed you from the world. And we know that that's what happened to Korah. So we're going to start this journey by understanding how this whole thing started. So we know that Moshe's interaction when he was in the house of the king, his interaction was with a Mitzri, with an Egyptian that he killed. But interestingly enough, there's a midrash that says as follows. We know that Korah was part of Shevet Levi, he was part of the tribe of Levi. And we know that the tribe of Levi, they never worked in Mitzrayim. They were never enslaved in Mitzrayim. So how did Korah become so wealthy? Where did he get his wealth from? Everybody knows that when somebody tells you, Korah, you should be wealthy like Korah. Where did Korah get such wealth? So there's a book called the Ne'inda, and he says that I heard from somebody that there's a midrash that says exactly how Korah became so wealthy. And the midrash says as follows, that when Paro told the Jewish people to make blocks to build the pyramid, Shevet Levi obviously didn't have any blocks. And we know that at one point, Paro made it much harder for them to build the blocks. He took away their any necessity, and they had to do everything from scratch. Therefore, what did Korah do? Korah did what? Instead of sitting and learning, he went every single day, and he started to make levanim, he started to make a block, until Paro made this new gzerah, where Am Yisrael couldn't get blocks. And Korah already amassed many blocks from over the years. He amassed many levanim from making one a day. So what happened was, since Korah had such a ta'ava for money, now the Jewish people, they had to start from scratch, and they couldn't do it physically. They couldn't do it, so they went to Korah and they said, Korah, we know you have blocks, so please sell them to us. And Korah knew that they needed them, so he sold it to them an exorbitant amount. So one block he sold them. So it says that Korah took all the money of all the Jews from Mitzrayim. So already his beginning was bad. That was Korah from the beginning. So we see from the beginning, Korah had a ta'ava, he had a lust for money, to the point where he didn't even feel when the Jewish people needed to bring blocks in order to fill the quota of the day, Korah sold it to them. So a very interesting midrash that tells us all this. Now, let's start from what the Arizal tells us. The Arizal tells us like this. We know that when Moshe Rabbeinu was in the house of the king, he went one day and he saw an Egyptian. And this Egyptian, right, what happened? This Egyptian, he was fighting with somebody, and he went and he went to the house of a person, and while this Jew was going out, he went and he had relations with his wife. And when Moshe Rabbeinu saw this Egyptian, he killed him. So why would he kill this Egyptian? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu kill this Egyptian? So it says we have to go back to the beginning. We all know that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gilgul, was a reincarnation of Hevel. And we'll see how Korah was a reincarnation of Cain. It says in the beginning, the Midrash says, Vayomer Cain elev achiv. Cain said to Hevel when they were in the land, right? They said that they started arguing. What did they argue about? Right? Cain said to Hevel, Dayan v'ledin. You know, there's no olam haba, there's no olam hazeh. He said to Hevel, there's no God. There's no judgment. What are you doing? What are you so worried about? So Hevel obviously took a different approach, right? Vayomer Hashem el Cain, and after Cain killed Hevel, Hashem says to Cain, "Yeh Hevel achicha." Where's Hevel, your brother? Vayomer lo yadate hashomer achi anochi. What am I guarding my brother? And we all know the story. What happened? That Cain killed Hevel. And how does Cain kill Hevel? What happened? Cain killed Hevel. He didn't know where the neshama would leave a person, so he started hitting him all over until the neshama went. And what happens? Hashem says to Cain, and he curses the Vayomer me'asita. What did you do, Cain? Kol dmei achicha tzoakim elai min ha'adama. The voice of the blood of your brother is screaming to me from the Amna. Look at the conversation. Hashem says to Cain, you're cursed because of the land that opened its mouth and swallowed the blood of your brother. Oh, very interesting. The land that opens its mouth and swallowed the blood of your brother. How did Korah end up dying? What happened? Out of all the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have done at that moment, what happened? It says, "Vatiftach haaretz et pia." The land opened up its mouth and it swallowed up Korah and all the 250 Nisim that were with him. Very interesting. What is the land opening up its mouth over there in the beginning where Cain killed Hevel, and then all of a sudden, many years later, when Korah is arguing with Moshe Rabbeinu, we see the same phenomenon that the land opens up its mouth and has to swallow them all again. So comes Rav Chaim Vital, who was the student of the Arizal, and he tells us something very interesting. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Cain, Ki shivatayim yekam Cain, velemech shivim v'sheva. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu has this dialogue with Cain, Cain says to Hashem, look what I did, I killed my brother, how am I ever going to get out of this? So Hashem gives him a sentence, and he tells him that you live for 7 generations and so forth. I don't want to go into the details, but it says that Rav Chaim Vital, who was the student of the Arizal, says that in Cain, there were 3 Gilgulim. Cain had to come back to fix himself 3 times. Who did Cain come back and fix himself? One of the people was Yitro, and we'll see, I'll go through that, how that connects to Moshe Rabbeinu also. It was Cain, it was the Mitzri, and it was also Korah. So Cain fixed himself through Yitro, the Mitzri, and Korah. And you're going to ask me, how can that be? Because they were all in the same time span. Yitro was alive at the time of that Mitzri, and the Mitzri was alive at the time of Korah. Because we know that a person has 3 is nefesh, ruach, neshama. Your neshama has 5 parts to it. It has something called a nefesh. It has something called a ruach. It has something called a neshama, a chaya, and a yechida. The yechida is something that goes above us. Nobody really reaches that point. That's only when Mashiach comes. But there's the neshama of a person, and there's the nefesh, and there's the ruach. So Korah, he was the Gilgul of Cain. Therefore, that's why Korah was jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is Korah, out of all the people, you're such a wealthy individual, you're a head of a tribe, why are you all of a sudden becoming jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu? You're becoming jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu? Of course you're becoming jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu. You know why? Because you have to fix what happened between you and Moshe Rabbeinu in your previous reincarnation. And we'll see how that plays out. It says as follows. So therefore, what happened? How did Cain come to the world? When the Nachash, when the snake started to entice Chava, it says that he put his zuma, the Nachash put his, let's call it his poison, into Chava. And from that came out Cain. So Cain had to take out the poison, the zuma of the Nachash. Therefore, he had to come back in all these reincarnations in order to fix that. So when Moshe Rabbeinu, now why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to kill the Mitzri? So what happened? Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the Gilgul of Hevel, he was the reincarnation of Hevel. Ratzal etaken nishmat Cain. Says Rav Chaim Vital, he wanted to fix the neshama of Cain. Moshe Rabbeinu was a true leader, and he knew who the Mitzri was, this Egyptian person that went and had relations with a Jewish woman, and he knew who Korah was, and we'll later get on to how that's connected to Yitro, because remember we said that Korah, that Cain came back as the Egyptian, as Korah, and as Yitro. And all these people, very interestingly enough, had a connection with Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did they all have a connection with Moshe Rabbeinu? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was the reincarnation of Hevel. And in order for Cain to get his rectification, he had to have all these connections with Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore, let's start from the first Gilgul of Cain, which was the Mitzri. So therefore, how did Moshe Rabbeinu kill that Egyptian that he saw going to have relations with a woman in Egypt while her husband was going out to work? It says that he wanted to fix him. Lachen lo harag oto becherev. When Moshe Rabbeinu, it wasn't stam that he was about to kill this Egyptian person that he could have used the sword. How did Moshe Rabbeinu kill him? B'shem HaMefurash. He killed him with the Shem Membet. It's one of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that if a person knows this name, you're able to kill somebody. Why? She'en davar mitbarer v'oleh lemala lebekach Meshem Bet. Because Moshe Rabbeinu knew that in this Mitzri, right, there was the nefesh of Cain, and in order to uplift the nefesh of Cain, he had to kill him with the Shem HaMefurash. and therefore he rectified that nefesh that was inside of him, that of Cain. Fine, that takes care of him. What happens afterwards? The ruach of Cain went into Korah, which was the head of the Rosh Shevet Levi, like it says in the Zohar, because if, just an interesting fact, said Rav Chaim Vital, somebody's ruach can never go back into a goy. It always has to be a Jew. The nefesh of a person, if a person sins in the part of your neshama that's a nefesh, then that could come back in a goy to fix it. But the ruach, which is a part of your neshama that comes down, that can only come in a Jew. Fine. And then the neshama of Korah, neshama of Cain, went into Yitro. Now, we know, says the Midrash, what did Cain and Hevel really have an argument about? That Cain was jealous of Hevel, because we know that when Cain and Hevel were born, they were all born with twins. Both Cain and Hevel were born with twins. And it says that Hevel was born with one more twin than Cain. And Cain became very jealous that Hevel was born with another twin. And therefore their whole machloket, the bitterness that is going to end between Korah and Moshe Rabbeinu, started between them. Now, how do you fix the fact that Cain was jealous from Hevel that he had an extra twin? Oh, Cain has to come back in Yitro. What happens with Yitro? So we know that what's the introduction of Yitro and Moshe Rabbeinu? Yitro was Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. And what happened with Yitro as being Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law? It says that Yitro, that when they came back home, when Moshe Rabbeinu was fleeing from Mitzrayim, and Sipporah comes to her father and she says, Ish Mitzri Tzilanu. We went out, father, we went to get water, and then people tried to attack us, and an Ish Mitzri, an Egyptian person, tries to save us, right? So therefore, what happened? How did Cain come back in Yitro and fix the fact that he was jealous of Hevel having another twin? Who was that twin? That twin was Tzipporah. So now Yitro, which is the neshama of Cain, gives what? He gives Moshe Rabbeinu his daughter, which is Tzipporah. Therefore showing, remember how last time when we were reincarnated, as I was the Cain and you were in Hevel, and I was jealous of you because of the twin, that you had an extra twin. Here's that twin, which is Sipporah. I'm giving it to you. I'm showing that it's rightfully yours. Therefore fixing the fact that I was jealous of you in the previous Gilgal, that you had an extra twin. Unbelievable, says the Arizal. You see that the whole situation, everything is coming together. HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps bringing us back to this world in order that we should rectify the things that we did. Now, so therefore that takes care of Yitro. That takes care of them now. What about Korah? What happens with Korah? Says the Shla Kadosh. Korah hayaletz. Korah was a clown. What does it mean he was a clown? He started to saying, what is this land that we have to work? After he started to tell Moshe Rabbeinu, what did he say? And we know that what it means, that he comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and he asks him about, Moshe Rabbeinu, you told him that we can't have a donkey and an ox plow the field together, and he started making fun of that. We know that we're not allowed to have two animals plowing the field. We're not allowed to have two species together. And in the beginning, says the Shla Kadosh, what happened? Umatzinu bebriat haolam, in the creation of the world, shekain ivi mipri adama. Cain brought from the fruits of the land, ve'evel ivi me'atzon, and Hevel's korban, they both brought a sacrifice. Hevel's sacrifice, we know, was a very beautiful sacrifice. He brought from cattle, and what did Cain bring? He just brought fruits, and even those fruits weren't very nice. Ve'kain ivi pishtan v'tzemer, ve'bami natzon ve'esh evdel gadol b'neim. And there was a big difference, says the Shla Kadosh, between their korbanot, between their sacrifices. Al ken tzemer v'pishtim beyachad em kelaim. Says the Shla Kadosh, since we know that Korah was the Gilgul of Cain, you see over here when he's coming to Moshe and he's jealous of Moshe again, what does he come to do? He has the same machloket. He comes to him with the same argument. What's that same argument? He tells him about things of the Adamah, the labors of the land. he starts to argue with him about, oh, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're making up these halachot, you're making up these mitzvot, you're telling us that we can't have an ox and a shore plowing the land together, you're telling us that you can't mix wool and linen, that's kilayim, you're making up these things in the same way that you made up that Aaron, your brother, should be the Kohen Gadol, and that you should be the king of Am Yisrael, the same way you made up these mitzvot, you're making up your positions, therefore, kol ha'edah kedoshim, all of us are kedoshim, and nobody should be the heads of anything, and we should all be equal. That's what Korah was telling Moshe Rabbeinu. We should all be the same. Why did you take all the glory for yourself? Why did you make your brother the Kohen Gadol? And this is what is all going on. Korah again was in the same way that he was jealous of Hevel in the beginning, because he saw that Hevel brought a beautiful korban, and he saw that Kadosh Baruch Hu took the Hevel's korban, and he didn't take his korban, and he was jealous about that. The same thing happened over here. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew this. That's why it says, "Vayipol Moshe v'Aaron vayiplu al penehem." What does it mean that they fell down? Ki achshav ala sirchon revi'i biyadam. Now they knew that this was the fourth thing. It was Chet HaEgel. Moshe Rabbeinu prayed, and Kadosh Baruch Hu forgave them. But says the Mifar, when they fell down, obviously Moshe Rabbeinu fell down because he knew that he was trying to fix Korah. And if Korah wasn't going to budge this time, he couldn't fix him. And very interestingly enough, you see what happens from the beginning. In the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Cain, Cain, where's Hevel, your brother? Oh, I hear his blood screaming from the ground. What do you mean you hear his blood screaming from the ground? I hear the land, it swallowed up the blood, says Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, when you do this, show that a great miracle. What happened? Out of all the miracles that could have happened, a fire could have gone out and swallowed up it. What happened? The land opened up his mouth. Why does the land open up its mouth? Why is that the punishment of Korach Vadato? Because in the same way that Korach killed Hevel, and the land the land opened up its mouth and sucked the blood of Hevel, therefore the land opened up its mouth over here and sucked up Korach in order for him to get that rectification. And that's what the Shlach Kadosh says. And he takes us, and the Shlach Kadosh is going to Vayinu Amitri. He takes us through all of them. Sharag Moshe v'itro choten Moshe kmo shkatuv v'chever hakeni. Therefore he says v'Moshe ugugul Hevel v'asa bo nekama gimel pa'amim. Therefore Hevel got his revenge 3 times. He killed the Mitri, and which is, by the way, it says v'ken remez vayach et hamitzri. He says vayach im amila begematria. If you take the word vayach with the word itself in the numerical value, that spells out Hevel. But Yitro fixed himself. He fixed the neshama of Cain. How did he fix the neshama of Cain? Because when Yitro gave Tzipora, his daughter, to Moshe Rabbeinu, he was showing subservient to Moshe Rabbeinu. He was showing, I know why I came back. I know why my neshama came back to this world, because in the previous Gilgul, I was jealous of you having an extra twin. Here's my daughter Tzipora, who was that extra twin when we first started all this. So therefore, he fixed it. But Korach, when he made this big machloket, v'chazar lesuro, az argo Moshe v'nikayem shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam yishafech. Says the Shlach Kadosh, the ruach of Korach never got its fixing. And we see over here that even though I just told you this whole Torah about the Gilgulim and about how really all this was coming, we see the value how much a person has to stray away from machloket. That when something arises inside of you in somebody else, think before you open your mouth. Think before you start to get a machloket. I know an individual that is a very wealthy man, a very successful man. And I asked his son once, what do you think the secret of your father is? Why is that everything that he touches flourishes? He says to me, you know what, Tomer? He says, my father pays money to avoid any kind of friction with any human being. He will do anything for shalom, whether he has to lose the money, whether he has to pay extra money. He says he will, whether it's a business deal, whether it's other things, he will do whatever it takes to keep peace and never get into a state of friction. I said, oh, that makes sense. A person like that goes to all the distance to never attribute to machloket, that's a person who Hashem makes wealthy. The Chafetz Chaim, I'm going to show you how the Gdolim the greatest of our generations, how they viewed machloket, how horrible it is to have friction. And we're not just talking about machloket. We know that the machloket was, Korah thought he was L'Shem Shamayim. We know that one of the reasons that really Korah had a machloket with Moshe Rabbeinu was, what was Korah trying to do? He was trying to bring about Mashiach. He was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, look, Moshe, why are you leaving us in the desert here for 40 years? You told us you were going to bring us to Eretz Zavat Chalav Udbash, to a land with milk and honey. And now you told us after the Miraglim, after the spies came back, you told us, no, we're going to be stuck here in the desert. Why? Look, we're all in the desert. We're eating the man. We got the Torah. Everybody's holy. It's Mashiach time. What does Moshe Rabbeinu answer him? Rav lachem shevet bnei Levi. Don't think it's time for Mashiach. And even in one of the Rav Tzadok Goyen says something very interesting. He says, you know what, Moshe Rabbeinu, this is a different twist than what I told you. When Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron fell down and they saw that Korah was fighting with them, you know why they fell down? They saw the Mesirut Nefesh. They saw to what extent Korah was going for in order to bring about Mashiach. They themselves were envious of, look what he's doing. Nonetheless, even though Korah thought that he was doing something that was L'Shem, that was for a good purpose, it wasn't L'Shem Shamayim. Why wasn't it L'Shem Shamayim? We know that the Torah says, how do I know a machloket L'Shem Shamayim? That's Beit Hillel or Beit Shammai. How do we know that Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai was a machloket L'Shem Shamayim when they were really arguing about something? It wasn't personal. It was to know the halacha because their daughters and their children married each other. And they always respected each other. And they were always, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, they had mutual respect. They might have argued in Torah ideas, but it was never a personal thing. When a machloket, when an argument about a subject becomes personal, that's the moment when a person knows it's no longer L'Shem Shamayim, it's no longer for the sake of heaven. It says about the Chafetz Chaim, look at the Gdolim, our greatest of generations, look how they viewed any kind of friction. This should be a lesson to us, any kind of friction, whether it's with friends, whether it's with family, whether it's with employees, with anybody. It says about the Chafetz Chaim. In Radin, he lived in a city called Radin. He said any time an argument happened in the city of Radin, and he saw that this argument was going to get out of control, he would leave the city. Even if the argument had nothing to do to him, he would totally leave the city, and he would only come back when the machloket, when the argument and the friction was finished. So they asked him once, Rabbi, why are you leaving the city? You're not even involved in the argument. So he says to them, he says, you don't know what kind of the fire that the machloket can cause. I can't be in that situation. I can't be in that place. The fire of machloket is so powerful that I'm afraid to be in the same city where an argument gets out of control. And we saw that by Korah. When the land opened up his mouth, even Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban, even the babies that were involved in this machloket, the land swallowed them in. Even it said if it was a needle that belonged to either Korah or the 250 people, that needle went all the way. It was like a magnet, and it pulled it in and it swallowed it. Anything that was involved in the machloket of Korah Vadato was swallowed up by the ground. It said of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he said once the people of his house that there was an argument. He says to him, you should know one thing, my son. You should know one thing. There was never a Jew that ever lost anything when in the time of friction, he was mevater, which means that he relinquished. He said to them, understand this, that when a person goes to the extent to bring about shalom, even if the other person is right, but you know that this is going to bring about machloket, and you step back, it says a Jew never lost because of doing that. It says about Rabbi Chacham Tzion Abba Shaul. One time a person came to Chacham Tzion Abba Shaul, and he asked him about a halachic situation. And there were a big machloket between very big rabbis. And they tried to pull Chacham Tzion Abba Shaul, they tried to pull him into this machloket. So he said to him, Teda, you should know, Amarlo. B'diyun halachati, ketzat shitnaeg, when it comes to halacha, many times we have different rabbis that we can rely on. Meaning the halacha could be straightforward, but there's always a rav that you can rely on. It might be a little bit lenient, it might be a little bit more crucial. But he says to him, I'm not going into this machloket. Why? Because in halacha we'll always find somebody to rely on. Avalachzik b'machloket, he goes, but to hold in an argument, you have nobody to rely on. When it comes to an argument, you have no posek to rely on. You have no rabbi that will tell you that when it comes to an argument, you have what to hold on it. It says, there was once, the Rambam writes, he says, look at the Rambam's view on machloket. He wrote once to his son, he wrote him a letter, and he warned him about machloket, and he used the pasuk, Al tishakzu et nafshetochem b'machloket, don't dirty your soul in an argument, amechalei aguf ve'anefesh ve'amamon, because it relinquishes you, it makes you weak physically, it makes your soul weak physically, and it takes away your money. And imagine, this is the way that our greatest viewed machloket, what they did from running away from any kind of argument. So therefore we have to understand, Korah, with all his intentions, with wanting to bring about Mashiach, and we know that even Moshe Rabbeinu, the sons of Korah, when he wanted to save them, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was their rabbi, and the sons of Korah didn't get up and go to Moshe Rabbeinu himself, with his humbleness, walked to their tent to try to make him to do tshuva, because Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to avoid the machloket at all costs. So Korah, with everything that he wanted to do, with all the Mashiach that he wanted to bring about, and Moshe Rabbeinu knew that this was a Gilgul, and he knew that he was coming to rectify everything. And Korah himself, this machloket was only an opportunity for him to rectify himself from what he did in the beginning. Imagine if Korah would have chosen Shalom. Imagine if Korah was subservient to Moshe Rabbeinu and would not have chosen to be jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu. He would have been fixing exactly the reason that he came to the world. So next time we have to think to ourselves, next time that something harbors inside of us, and we start to argue about something, and we look at somebody and we think we're so right, and we think it's L'Shem Shemaim, you never know why you came back to this world. You never know why you've been put in this position with that individual. And it's, remember what Rav Shlomo Auerbach always said, a Jew who chooses peace never loses. Imagine if Korah chose peace. He would have finished the reincarnation of Cain, and he would have gotten this total reincarnation when Moshe Rabbeinu fixed him as the Mitzri. Yitro fixed his neshama when he gave him Tzipora, and Korah could have fixed his ruach. He could have fixed the whole package if he would have just believed in Moshe Rabbeinu, and if he would have chosen an amicable way of dealing with Moshe Rabbeinu and choosing Shalom. So this is a big lesson to us, and this is the message that we have to learn from our Gdolim, to learn from our sages, that running away from machloket is like running away from fire. In the same way that a person that sees a fire doesn't go near it, you don't go near any machloket. The Chafet Chaim left the city when he saw a machloket getting out of control. So when a person sees a machloket, if you can make peace, great. But if you can't make peace, run away from it. And even if you think that the reason that you're fighting with somebody is L'Shem Shemaim, run away from it. And many times we should know, not even when we're talking about arguments and big ideas or arguments for the sake of Torah, even in little petty things, whether it's with our children, whether it's with our wives, whether it's with our friends, remember, it's always better to be the one that's mevater. Because like the midah, we have to be like Aaron, Ef Shalom v'rodef Shalom. A person has to chase peace. We know that the Korach and the Adato, they went against Aaron Avinu, and Aaron Avinu, this is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose him to be the Kohen Gadol, because he had this midah of Shalom. Not only did he have Shalom with himself, he ran after peace. And therefore, that's the kind of kol ha'ma'avir al midotav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu midah keneged midah ma'avirim lo. The Gemara tells us a very interesting story about Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. It says that there was a time of famine in the world, and Rabbi Eliezer was a great person. And as great as a Torah scholar as Rabbi Eliezer was, he was a little bit tough, Rabbi Eliezer. And he was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. And it says that the Gemara in Tani tells us, when Rabbi Eliezer went down and he started to pray for rain, they didn't answer him from Shemaim. And when Rabbi Akiva went down and started to pray for rain, right away it started to rain. So all the students were baffled. How can it be? Rabbi Eliezer, we know, is a great person. It says about Rabbi Eliezer, when he was about to pass away, Rabbi Akiva, a student, went to him and he taught him secrets, and Rabbi Akiva started to cry from the secrets that he taught him, and he realized what they lost. And Rabbi Eliezer, they saw the greatness of Rabbi Eliezer. So how can it be that Rabbi Eliezer, when he went down to pray for rain, Hashem didn't answer him? And when Rabbi Akiva, seemingly somebody who was on a lower stature than Rabbi Eliezer, right away when he went, HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered and the rain came down. So a heavenly voice came out when they saw that the whole place was in baffle. How can it be? a heavenly, a bat kol yatzet, and says, Lo mipnei shezeh gadol mizeh. Don't think that the reason we answered Rabbi Akiva over Rabbi Eliezer is because Rabbi Akiva was greater than Rabbi Eliezer. No, the reason we answered is shezeh ma'avir al midotav v'zeh no ma'avir al midotav. Rabbi Akiva was a person. We know Rabbi Akiva's motto was ve'afta l'recha kamocha. You should love every fellow like you love yourself. Rabbi Akiva always put himself last. Rabbi Eliezer had a thing. He was like Beit Shammai. He was very stringent. He had very big respect for Torah, so he was very straight about everything. Rabbi Akiva was a little bit more lenient. He was ma'avir al midotav. Therefore, the Bat Kol says, midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Since Rabbi Akiva was ma'avir al midotav and would never argue, he was always put himself last. So when he asks us to do something, we do it. So therefore, when a person wants his gets, we all need tefillot. A person needs yeshuot. We all need a Kadosh Baruch Hu to answer us. So when a person wants to ask a Kadosh Baruch Hu for something, and he wants Hashem to answer him, remember this, that when you'll be ma'avir al midotecha, when you put yourself in a situation where you're mevater, you forego your own will for the will of another Jew, a Kadosh Baruch Hu will forego his will for your will. Wishing you a great evening.